So let's begin by taking several deep cleansing breaths. And now relax, release, and bring your mind home. First, scan your body and release any tension. Assume your very best meditation posture. Release any mental and emotional baggage from the day, anything that is on your mind, set it aside. And bring your mind home to this here and now. Flowing with how the present's changing from moment to moment. And with how we're joining our spaciousness and our energies in this mandala of study and practice. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all Mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all Mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. So we have a few things to talk about tonight. So if you have the note paper, if you have the mandala frame that I sent to people via email last week, would be most helpful. If you don't have it, just we're going to put it up on the screen so you can see it, but I'm also going to put some other things up on the screen.
It's also, the file is also in the chat box if
Okay.
someone needs to open it from there or download it.
All right. Thank you very much. So tonight, we've been trying to emphasize, the need for the repetition that we do, and that every day that we do practice, every day that we would recite the Bardo Thodol for someone who has passed, we would be reciting these opening prayers. We would be reciting the root verses of the 6 states and so on, and the purification. And so trying to establish that routine, that this is what we do to establish our mindfulness of what it is that we do. So tonight we're going to start with page 76, the daily recitations after death. So what I would like to do tonight is to, let's try something a little bit different, and that is have one person read one section. And maybe so we won't get as many opportunities to read during a particular session that we're having, but maybe our concentration will go up a little bit rather than having to think about when's the next time I got to read something or something. So if we go back to the other way, is fine. But I wanted to try something a little different and leave some time for more discussion tonight. So, so does anybody have any questions or comments before we get started? Anything that we've talked about in the past?
What page were we starting on again?
We'll be starting on page 76.
Okay.
Daily recitations after death.
Lance, can you please remind me how we're going to utilize this mandala maps? Or
it's for you to take notes on. So I'm going to, give you some clues where some things should go. So we're going to have a discussion about that. But first, we're going to get the context, get our mindfulness of the Bardo Thodol, what we're doing with the days 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tonight, we're going to talk about 4 a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the Buddha families themselves. So there'll be things to put onto the chart.
great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. So any other questions or comments?
My page 71 says part 1, an elucidation of the intermediate state of the time of death. Am I in the right book?
You should be on page 76 of the page
Pecha?
of the Pecha.
That's where I am.
Okay. Okay. So what I would like to do then is to ask Curtis if you will read page 76 through 80. So that's the daily recitation after death up to where it begins as day 1. Then Adrian, will you read page 81, day 1, and continue that through up to day 2. And then note where the prayers have to be repeated, that there's a prayer there that needs to be repeated 3 times. So you will do that. So you'll be reading that, please. Ezra, will you please read day number 2? So that would mean pages 85 up to where it starts day 3, which is on page 89. So if you will read that. And then day 4, if let's see, if Amanda will read day 4, which is the Padma family, and that is page 94 to the up to where it begins as day 5. And then day 5, the Karma family, Louisa, will you read that, please? Page 98 up to where it says day 6. And then we're going to discuss day 5, and then we're going to do a little bit more of a detailed review of the Buddha families that are expressed in these first 5 days that we've been talking about. Okay, anybody got any questions? Okay, Curtis, begin when you're ready, please.
So we're doing all 5 days then?
Yes.
Okay. Page 76. Part 1, an elucidation of the intermediate state of the time of death and the appearance of the peaceful deities in the intermediate state of reality. Introduction to the intermediate state of reality. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, listen very intently and without distraction. There are 6 kinds of intermediate states, namely, the intermediate state of living or natural existence, the intermediate state of dreams, the intermediate state of meditative stability or concentration, the intermediate state of the time of death, the intermediate state of reality, and the intermediate state of consequent rebirth. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, during and after death, you will experience 3 intermediate states: the intermediate state of the time of death, the intermediate state of reality, and the intermediate state of rebirth. Of these 3, it was the intermediate state of the time of death which you experienced until yesterday. Although the inner radiance of reality arose during that time, you did not recognize it. So now, as a result, you have been compelled to wander here, and now you will experience the intermediate state of reality, followed by the intermediate state of rebirth. You must therefore recognize, without distraction, the instruction of events which I am now going to introduce to you. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, that which is called death has now arrived. You are leaving this world, but in this you are not alone. This happens to everyone. Do not be attached to this life. Do not cling to this life. Even if you remain attached and clinging, you do not have the power to stay. You will only continue to roam within the cycles of existence. Therefore, do not be attached and do not cling. Think of the 3 precious jewels. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, however terrifying the appearances of the intermediate state of reality might be, do not forget the following words. Go forward, remembering their meaning. The crucial point is that through them recognition may be attained. Alas, now, as the intermediate state of reality arises before me, renouncing the merest thought of awe, terror, or fear, I will recognize all that arises to be awareness, manifesting naturally of itself. Knowing such sounds, lights, and rays to be visionary phenomena of the intermediate state. At this moment, having reached this crucial point, I must not fear the assembly of peaceful and wrathful deities which manifest naturally. Alas, now, as the intermediate state of reality arises before me, renouncing the merest thought of all terror or fear, I will recognize all that arises to be awareness, manifesting naturally of itself. Knowing such sounds, lights, and rays to be visionary phenomena of the intermediate state. At this moment, having reached this critical point, I must not fear the assembly of peaceful and wrathful deities which manifest naturally. Alas, now, as the intermediate state of reality arises before me, renouncing the merest thought of all terror or fear, I will recognize all that arises to be awareness manifesting naturally of itself. Knowing such sounds, lights, and rays to be visionary phenomena of the intermediate state. At this moment, having reached this critical point, I must not fear the assembly of peaceful and wrathful deities which manifest naturally. Go forward, reciting these words distinctly, and be mindful of their meaning. Do not forget them, for it is essential to recognize with certainty that whatever terrifying experiences may arise, they are natural manifestations of actual reality. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, when your mind and body separate, the pure luminous apparitions of reality itself will arise, subtle and clear, radiant and dazzling, naturally bright and awesome, shimmering like a plain in summer. Do not fear them. Do not be terrified. Do not be awed. They are the natural luminosities of your own natural reality. Therefore, recognize them as they are. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, from within these lights, the natural sound of reality will resound, clear and thunderous, reverberating like 1,000 simultaneous peals of thunder. This is the natural sound of your own actual reality. So do not be afraid. Do not be terrified. Do not be awed. The body you now have is called a mental body. It is the product of subtle propensities and not a solid corporeal body of flesh and blood. Therefore, whatever sounds, lights, or rays may arise, they cannot harm you. For you are beyond death now. It is enough that you simply recognize the sounds and luminosities to be manifestations of your own actual reality. Know that this is the intermediate state. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, if you do not recognize these phenomena to be natural manifestations, whatever meditative practices you may have undertaken whilst in the human world, if you have not previously encountered this present instruction, you will fear the light, you will be awed by the sound, and you will be terrified by the rays. If you do not now understand this essential point of the teaching, you will not recognize the sounds, the lights, and the rays, and you will continue to roam within the cycles of existence. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Su, should you have moved on without recognition after having been unconscious for up to 3.5 days, you will awaken from unconsciousness and wonder, what has happened to me? So recognize this to be the intermediate state. At this time, the aspects of the cycles of existence are reversed into their own true nature, and all phenomenon are arising as lights in Buddha bodies.
Day 1. On the first day of the intermediate state of reality, all space will arise as a blue light. At this time, from the central Buddha field called pervasive seminal point, the transcendental Lord Vairochana will dawn before you, his body white in color, seated on a lion throne, holding in his right hand an 8-spoked wheel, and embraced by his consort Akasha Datisvari, a blue luminosity, radiant and clear, bright and dazzling, indicative of pristine cognition, of reality's expanse, which is the natural purity of your aggregate of consciousness. will emanate from the heart of Vairocana in his consort, and it will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Together with this luminosity, a dull white light, indicative of the realm of the gods, will also dawn directly before you and touch your heart. At this time, under the sway of negative past actions, you will wish to flee in fear and terror from the bright blue light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, and you will come to perceive the dull white light of the God realms with delight. At this moment, do not be awed by the blue luminosity, which is radiant and dazzling, clear, very bright. This is the supreme inner radiance of pristine cognition. Do not be terrified. This is the light ray of Tathagata, which is called the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. Have confidence in it. Be drawn to it with longing devotion. Pray with devotion, thinking. This is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Vairocana's compassion. I take refuge in it. For this, in reality, is the transcendent Lord Vairocana and his consort come to escort you on the dangerous pathway of the intermediate state. This is the light ray of Vairocana's compassion. Therefore, do not delight in the dull white light of the God realms. Do not be attached to it. Do not cling to it. This dull white light is the inviting path created by your own habitual tendencies for deep delusion, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to it, you will roam within the God realms and be drawn into the cycles of existence of the 6 classes of beings. This dull light is an obstruction blocking the path to liberation. Do not look at it. Be devoted to the bright blue light. Focus intently on the transcendent Lord Vairocana and repeat after me the following aspirational prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated delusion, may the transcendent Lord Vairocana draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. May the supreme consort, Akasha Datishvari, support me from behind, and thus, encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated delusion, may the transcendent Lord Vairocana draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. May the supreme consort, Akasha Datishvari, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated delusion, may the transcendent Lord Vairocana draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. May the supreme consort Akasha Datishvari support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of Vairocana and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the central Buddha field of dense array, Ganaviyoha.
Day 2, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Jin, listen without distraction. On the second day, the purity of the entire element, water, will arise in the form of a white light. At that time, from the eastern Buddha field of manifest joy, Abhirati, the transcendent Lord, Akshobhya Vajrasattva, will dawn before you. his body blue in color, holding in his right hand a 5-pronged Vajra, seated on an elephant throne and embraced by his consort, Buddha Lokana. They are encircled by 2 male bodhisattvas, the Siddhagarbha and Maitreya, and 2 female bodhisattvas, Lasaya and Puspa. Thus, 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light, a brilliant white light indicative of the mirror-like pristine cognition, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of form, white and dazzling, radiant and clear, will emanate from the heart of Vajrasattva Akshobhya and his consort, and it will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Together with this light of pristine cognition, a dull smoky light, indicative of the hell realms, will also dawn before you and touch your heart. At that time, under the sway of aversion, you will wish to turn away in fear and terror from the bright white light and come to perceive the dull smoky light of the hell realms with delight. At that moment, you should fearlessly recognize the white light, white and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition. Have confidence in it. Be drawn to it with long devotion. Pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva, Akshobhya, his compassion. I take refuge in it. This in reality is Vajrasattva, Akshobhya, and his consort, come to escort you on the dangerous pathway of the intermediate state. This is the light ray hook of Vajrasattva, Akshobhya, compassion. Be devoted to it. Do not delight in the dull, smoky light of the hell realms. This dull light is the inviting path of the negative obscurations created by your own deep aversion, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to it, you will fall into the realms of hell, sinking into a swamp of unbearable suffering, from which there will be no immediate opportunity for escape. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not look at it. Abandon your aversion. Do not be attached to it. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the white light, radiant and dazzling. Focus intently on the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Akshobhya and recite the following aspirational prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated aversion, may the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Akshobhya draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the mere light pristine cognition. May the supreme consort, Buddha Lokana, support me from behind, and thus, encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated aversion, may the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Akshobhya draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the mere light pristine cognition. May the supreme consort, Buddha Lokana, support me from behind, and thus, encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated aversion, may the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Akshobhya draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the mere light pristine cognition. May the supreme consort, Buddha Lokana, support me from behind, and thus, encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart, of the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Akshobhya, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the Eastern Buddha field of manifest joy, Adharati.
Was someone chosen to read day number 3?
Was I supposed to do day number 3 and then
No,
did somebody?
somebody else. Maybe I missed saying who was going to read number 3. Sorry about that. Is Louisa reading number 4?
I'm reading.
And Amanda,
I'm reading number 5.
who's reading number 4?
I am, Lance.
Amanda, that's what I thought. Okay. Well then, John, are you available to read?
Okay,
Can you read number 3, please?
okay. Day 3, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Samten, listen without distraction. On the 3rd day, purity of the entire element earth will arise in the form of a yellow light. At this time, from the yellow southern Buddha field of the glorious Shrima, transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava will dawn before you, his body yellow in color, holding in his right hand a jewel, seated on a horse throne and embraced by his supreme consort Mamaki. They are encircled by 2 male bodhisattvas, Akashagarbha as Samantabhadra, and 2 female bodhisattvas, Malya and Dupa. Thus 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light. A yellow light indicative of the pristine cognition of sameness, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of feeling, yellow and dazzling, adorned by greater and lesser seminal points of light, radiant, clear, and unbearable to the eyes, will emanate from the heart of Ratnasambhava and his consort, and will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Together with the light of pristine cognition, a dull blue light indicative of the human realm will also dawn before you and touch your heart. At that time, under the sway of pride, you will wish to turn away in fear and terror from the bright yellow light, and you will come to delight in the dull blue light of the human realm and feel attachment towards it. At that time, abandon your fear of the yellow light and recognize it as pristine cognition, yellow and dazzling, radiant and clear. Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it in a state of non-activity. Again and again, have confidence in it. Be drawn to it with longing devotion. If you recognize it as the natural luminosity of your own awareness, even though you may feel no devotion towards it and have not recited the aspirational prayer, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will dissolve inseparably into you, and you will attain Buddhahood. If you are unable to recognize the radiance as being the natural luminosity of your own awareness, then pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava's compassion. I take refuge in it. This in reality is the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava come to escort you on the fearsome, dangerous pathway of the intermediate state. This is the light ray of Ratnasambhava's compassion. Be devoted to it. Do not delight in the dull blue light of the human realm. This dull light is the inviting path created by your own habitual tendencies for deep-seated pride, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to it, you will tumble down into the human realm. You will experience the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and there will be no immediate opportunity to escape from the swamp of cyclic existence. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not look at it. Abandon pride. Abandon your habitual tendencies. Do not be attached to the dull blue light. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the yellow light, golden and dazzling. Focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava and recite the following aspirational prayer. or as I roam in cyclic existence driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness. May the Supreme Consort Mamaki support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Or as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness. May the Supreme Consort Mamaki support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Or as I roam in cyclic existence driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness. May the Supreme Consort Mamaki support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Or as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness. May the Supreme Consort Mamaki support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the southern Buddha field of the glorious Srimad.
Thank you. Will everybody please mute your microphones? And just the person who is reciting have their microphone on, please. Thank you.
Day 4. O child of Buddha nature, Riki Bu, Kontrak Nordzen Palmo, listen without distraction. On the 4th day, the purity of the element fire will arise in the form of a red light. At that time, from the red western Buddha field of the blissful Sukhavati, the transcendent Lord Amitabha will dawn before you, his body red in color, holding in his right hand a lotus flower, seated on a peacock throne and embraced by his supreme consort, Pandaravashini. They are encircled by 2 male bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri, and 2 female bodhisattvas, Gita and Aloka. Thus, 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light. A red light indicative of the pristine cognition of discernment, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of perceptions, red and dazzling, adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, radiant, bright, and dazzling, will emanate from the heart of Amitabha and his consort, and will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Do not be afraid. Together with the light of pristine cognition, a dull yellow light indicative of the realm of anguished spirits will also dawn before you and touch your heart. Do not delight in the dull yellow light. Do not become attached to it, and do not cling to it. At this time, under the sway of deep desire, you will wish to turn away in fear and terror from the bright red light, and you will come to delight in the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits and feel attachment towards it. At this moment, abandon your fear and recognize the red light, bright and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition. Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it in a state of non-activity. Have confidence in the radiant red luminosity. Be drawn to it with longing devotion. If you recognize this radiance as the natural luminosity of your own awareness, even though you may feel no devotion towards it and have not recited the aspirational prayer, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will dissolve inseparably into you, and you will attain Buddhahood. If you are unable to recognize the radiance in this way, then pray with devotion, thinking, This is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Amitabha's compassion. Be devoted to it. Do not turn away. Should you turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably. Do not be afraid. Do not be attached to the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits. This is the inviting path created by your own habitual tendencies for deep-seated desire, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to this dull light, you will fall down into the realm of the anguished spirits. You will experience unbearable sufferings of hunger and thirst. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not be attached to it. Abandon your attachment. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the red light, which is radiant and dazzling, and focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Amitabha and his consort, and recite the following aspirational prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated desire, may the transcendent Lord Amitabha draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of discernment. May the supreme consort, Pandaravashini, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated desire, may the transcendent Lord Amitabha draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of discernment. May the supreme consort, Pandaravishini, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated desire, may the transcendent Lord Amitabha draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of discernment. May the supreme consort, Pandaravashini, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Amitabha and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the Western Buddha field of the blissful Sukhavati.
Day 5. O child of Buddha nature, Ricky Boo, Louisa, listen without distraction. On the 5th day, the purity of the entire wind element will arise in the form of a green light. At that time, from the green northern Buddha field, called Matrix of Enlightened Activities, Karma Pradashi, the Transcendent Lord Agamashashdi will, with his retinue will draw before you, his body green in color, holding in his right hand a crossed Vajra, seated at the circumvicar bird throne and embraced by his supreme corset Samitara. These two are encircled by male Buddha vistas, Parmashparnani and Nirvana Vishkamhin, and 2 female Buddha vistas, Ganda and Narti. The 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light. A green light indicative of the pristine cognition of accomplishment, which is a natural purity of the aggregate of motivational tendencies. Green and dazzling, radiant and clear, bright and awesome, adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, will emanate from the heart of Agmashahati and his consort, and will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Do not be afraid. This is the natural expressive power of your own awareness. Rest in the state of great equanimity, transcending activity, free from the dichotomies of attachment and aversion, based on your feelings of nearness and distant. Together with the light of pristine cognition, a dull red light, indicative of the realm of the anti-gods, will also dawn before you and touch your heart. Cultivate an equanimity toward this dull light, which is free from attachment or aversion. Even if your mental capacity is diminished, at least do not delight in it. At this time, under the sway of deep envy, you will wish to turn away in terror from the bright and dazzling green luminosity, and you will come to feel delight and attachment towards a dull red light of the anti-gods. At this moment, abandon your fear and recognize the green luminosity, bright and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition. Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it, resting in a state of non-activity. Pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Amagashadhi, compassions. Take refuge in it. This in reality is the light ray hook of the transcendent Lord Amagashadhi. Compassion, which is known as the pristine cognition of accomplishment. Be devoted to it. Do not turn away. Even if you do not turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably. So do not be afraid. Do not be attached to the dull red light of the anti-gods. This is the inviting path of your past actions, which you yourself have engaged in, was motivated by deep envy. If you become attached to this dull light, you will fall into the realms of the anti-gods and experience the unbearable sufferings of unrelenting conflict and quarreling. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not be attached to it. Give up your yearning. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the green light, which is radiant and dazzling, and focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Amagashadhi and his consort, and recite the following aspirational prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated envy, may the transcendent Lord Amagashadhi draw me forward, leading me on the path of the radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort Samaya Tara support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passage of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of the utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated envy, may the transcendent Lord Amagashadhi draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of the accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort Samaya Tara support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of the utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated envy, may the transcendent Lord Amagashadhi draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort Samaya Tara support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passage of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer for fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transit Lord Amagashhari and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of the perfect resource in the northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activities, Karma Pardashi.
Okay, thank you all very much. So today we're talking about, in particular, day 5, which is here, this family, the Amagog City family. So we will go line by line and talk about what each thing has meaning here. Day 5, O child of Buddha nature, Ricky Boo, Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen without distraction. On the 5th day, the purity of the entire wind element will rise in the form of a green light. At that time, from the green northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activities, Karma Prasiddhi, the transcendent Lord Amagog City, with his retinue will dawn before you, his body green in color, holding in his right hand a crossed vajra, seated on a Sivam Savika bird throne and embraced by his supreme consort Samayatara. So here, this Buddha, this is the wind element. He represents the wind element, which is the element of movement. And also his symbol is the Vishra Vajra, it's the crossed Vajra, 2 Vajras in a cross form. And this represents the union of the multiplicities. This means all the different possibilities are all in union with each other. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. But so this is the karma. His symbol is the Vishra Vajra, and he represents the karma. This is called the karma family. So the karma family is the action family. Karma means action. So this is all the possibilities, all being able to be manifest, and then through all the wisdoms that we have cultivated with the other Buddhas to get to this point, we choose what it is that we are going to accomplish, what our goals are going to be, what karma we are going to follow, what karma we are going to make, what karma we are not going to make, what karma we are going to neutralize. So karma is a key element of this particular family. Seated on the Sivam Savika throne. So the Sivam Savika, I happen to have a picture of that. Here it is. So this is half bird and half human. You see that he's got the torso, the head and torso of a human being, and he's got the wings and the lower part of his body of a bird, and represents this transformation of being able to not be bound on the earth, but to be able to fly above the earth. So all the things that we think that we have limitations of, particularly being able to fly, symbolized by being able to fly, in this case is being able to be accomplished. So Buddha Amagoga City is the all-accomplishing wisdom, represents the all-accomplishing wisdom. So this Sivam Savika animal being is representative of that. And his consort is Samayatara. Samayatara, Samaya means the vow taker. So Tara, she is the Buddha of fearlessness. So she represents that wisdom of fearlessness And she takes a vow to be able to assist in all the accomplishments, to be able to and engage in all the accomplishments for whatever it is they need to bring for us to realize from them, ultimately to be able to renounce them, to be able to give them up, to be able to cut ourselves off from having to do those things, so that we are no longer creating karma, good karma or bad karma. Ultimately is what we're trying to do, that we just neutralize karma. So the Buddha nature is unaffected by karma. So we're trying to recognize that we can do that, but first we have to exhaust all these possibilities that we fabricated in our mind that we need to do. And when we finally exhaust that, we say, oh, all I really need to do is just be liberated, just be Buddha. So Samyatara supports Amigog City in that way. So it says these two are encircled by two male bodhisattvas, Vajrapani and Navarana Vishkaben. So Vajrapani is here. Let me see here. So here is Vajrapani holding a book, and this is showing the power of Dharma. And over here, this is Sarvanavarana Vishkabin, and I can't tell what he's holding. I'm sorry. I can't tell what he's holding, but he represents purification. So, so we'll see how these 8 great bodhisattvas that are here, these are the last 2, Vajrapani and the Sarvanavarana Vishkabin, how they all come together. We're going to talk about that tonight. So we'll see how that works. Then in front of the mother and father of this deity is Narti and Ganda. In the front is Ganda. Ganda has incense in her hand, and this hand is representing a freedom, a joyous dance that she is able to do of not just celebration, but just being able to engage in all the different possibilities and dance through them without losing balance. Then Narte behind her is holding food, and this food is the nourishment to enable us to be able to carry on and to be able to have the energy for the activities and so on. So Vajrapani represents again that power. So without the food, we can't have the power. The Ganda, the incense, this dance is part of this purification of anything of our dualistic nature, all the things that we think, are good and bad, positive and negative and everything. We see that we can transcend those and bring them all into union within ourselves. So this is what we are learning how to do. So Ganda and Narti, thus the 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you on a space of rainbow light. So I'm back on page 99. So now the next paragraph says, a green light indicative of the pristine cognition of accomplishment, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of motivational tendencies. Green and dazzling, radiant and clear, bright and awesome, adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, will emanate from the heart of Amigog City and his consort, and shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. So do not be afraid. This is the natural expressive power of your own awareness. Rest in a state of natural equanimity, transcending activity, free from the dichotomies of attachment and aversion, based on your feelings of nearness and distance. So we see that all the dualities, all the different things that we are bound by, limited by, here are overcome, are transcended. So here is this piercing bright green light that is emanating from these seminal points. So you have to use a little bit of an imagination to be able to visualize this. But this is the green light of Amitabha and his consort. Together with the light of pristine cognition, and remember the pristine cognition is the Rigpa, is the awareness, is the enlightenment, the clear light, the Mahamudra, the Dzogchen, all these different terms that are characterizing that meditate, not the meditate, but beyond the meditative, the enlightened state of mind, the mind of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya state. So the light of pristine cognition, together with the light of pristine cognition, which is this green light, and a dull red light, indicative of the realm of the anti-gods, will also dawn before you and touch your heart. Cultivate the equanimity towards this dull light, which is free from attachment or aversion. Even if your mental capacity is diminished, at least do not delight in it. At this time, under the sway of deep envy, you will wish to turn away in terror from the bright and dazzling green luminosity, and you will come to feel delight and attachment towards the dull red light of the anti-gods. So this is the red light of the jealous God realm, or the anti-God realm, or the demigod realm, as it's called. And these beings, these God beings, these jealous God beings, are in constant conflict with each other and with the gods. They want to be the Deva gods, and but they have great skillful means, these jealous gods, great ability to be able to manipulate many human beings, and to giving them money and to giving them power, and they take that and then jealously hoard that, and are jealous of the other gods, and they want their power, they want their followers, and so they're always in conflict, and they are trying to wage war. They are trying to destroy the Deva gods, but the Deva gods are untouchable. They're the slings and arrows that are coming from these jealous gods don't even reach the Deva gods, and the Deva gods are completely unaware that they're being seized upon by these jealous gods. So remember that these God realms, that the six realms of being a human being is the psychophysical drama of being a human being. That being a human being means that there are times when you might imagine, you might think that you are in a Deva, that you are as a Deva God, that you are a jealous God, that you are a human being caught in the web of opportunities to do things, that you are an animal who is lost in ignorance, that you are a hungry ghost who is miserable because of your insatiability, and is in the hell realms, being a hell being who is caught in the grip of anger, aggression, and hatred. And so this is the psychophysical drama of being a human being. So this is familiar to us. And when we are in the Bardo of reality and recognizing or seeing these bright objects, these bright lights that we've been talking about, and we are not prepared for that, then these dull lights are much more comfortable for us because we have experience with them. And we say, oh, I'd rather be that because I can't stand this bright light. I'm not prepared for this bright light. You cower away and you sink into rebirth again, seeking a life in one of these realms, depending on your karma So we'll talk much more about that as we progress along the study of the Bardo Thodol. So it says, cultivate an equanimity, a balance toward this dull light, so the equanimity is free from the attachment and aversion. Even if your mental capacity is diminished, at least do not delight in it. At this time, under the sway of deep envy, you will wish to turn away in terror from the bright and dazzling green luminosity, and you will come to feel delight and attachment towards the dull red light of the anti-gods. So now, in the next paragraph, it says, at this moment, abandon your fear and recognize the green luminosity, bright and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition, the rigpa, the awakened awareness. Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it, resting in a state of non-activity, resting in a state of non-activity. Karma means action, which of course is activity. And so to be able to be in a state of non-activity just automatically says that you're not creating karma, either good karma or bad karma. How we do that is what we're going to investigate further as we get along in our practice here. So pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Amagog City's compassion. I take refuge in it. This, in reality, is the light ray hook of the transcendent Lord Amagog City's compassion, which is known as the pristine cognition of accomplishment, the clear light of accomplishment, what accomplishment is, what is really the ultimate accomplishment is enlightenment, is liberation. Be devoted to it. Do not turn away. Even if you do turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably. So do not be afraid. Do not be attached to the dull red light of the anti-gods. So this statement here, even if you do turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably. What that means is that we have all this within ourselves. We have all this wisdom within ourselves. We have all this compassion within ourselves, but it's blocked up. It's obscured by our emotions and by our wisdom obscurations. And but it's still there. It's always there. And what we are trying to do is to remove those obstacles, and then we see these lights. So these lights come to us as glimpses. They come to us as shards of light that kind of break through the obscurations as we are developing our meditation practices. So this is why we're meditating in the human realm of awakening, of being a human being, of being in this bardo of living. This is where we can practice this, where we can see this, we can realize this, and we can prepare ourselves for the bardo of reality. So now the next paragraph on page 101 says, this is the inviting path of your past actions which you yourself have engaged in whilst motivated by deep envy, talking about the dull red light. If you become attached to this dull light, you will fall into the realms of the anti-gods and experience the unbearable sufferings of unrelenting conflict and quarreling. They are fighting among themselves, trying to get power by overcoming each other and being able to capture their devotees, their devotees who are following them. This dull light is an obstacle, blocking the path to liberation. Do not be attached to it. Give up your yearning. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the green light, which is radiant and dazzling, and focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Amagog City and his consort, and recite the following aspirational prayer. Now, get back to this picture here. Of course, these pictures are just symbolic. They're just to help us to remember. This is not reality. This is symbolism of a reality that is within us, that is beyond all these symbols. But we need these symbols at this time to be able to help us to like leap. They're like springboards to help us to liberate ourselves, to leap from the bounds that are holding us back, the bonds that are holding us back. So now the prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, which is the 6 realms of being a human being. These are the cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated envy. May the transcendent Lord, Amagog City, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort, Samaya Tara, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. So Amagog City has his green light ray that is like that hook that is drawing us forward, like the tractor beam, drawing us forward. And Samaya Tara is behind us, supporting us from behind, not necessarily pushing us. But if we begin to weaken, she is there to give us support so we can feel that strength, at that wisdom at our back to keep us moving forward towards Amagog City. And may I be rescued. So they are there to rescue. Their compassion is rescuing us from being caught up in this terrible dilemma of not knowing what to do and possibly being pulled back into rebirth again as a human being, or maybe a being in a lower realm. May I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state. So the passageway of the intermediate state means all the different Bardos. So right now we're in the Bardo of reality, but the next Bardo after this is the Bardo of becoming, otherwise known as the Bardo of rebirth. And then we go into the Bardo of living. And then we experience the Bardo of dreams and the Bardo of meditation. And then we go through the Bardo of death, only to become into the Bardo of reality again. So we've been through this cycle many, 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 many times. This fearsome passageway of the intermediate state. This is why we're called migrators. We're migrating through these 6 realms. We're migrating through these 6 Bardos. We're these migrators. And then to be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. So this is like Garchen Rinpoche always says, water being poured into water, that we recognize that this light ray is our own light, and that we are able to rest and abide in that own natural light. So by making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Amagoga City and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activities, Karma Prasiddhi. So you will attain Buddhahood in the Buddha body of perfect resource. This Buddha body of perfect resource, this is an epithet for the Sambhogagaya, for the subtle enjoyment body of the Buddha. Perfect resource, having all these resources of meditation. So this is our thought process. This is what we are doing in our meditations. This is the highest level that we can attain as human beings that then launch us into becoming Buddha. So as we are going through this Buddha body of perfect resource, as we are apprehending it and we are accomplishing it at different levels and so on, we are the bodhisattva. the holy enlightened being. He was on the pathway to become a Buddha. So, and this Buddha field of Amagog City is called the matrix of enlightened activities. So remember I said that the Vishra Vajra, the crossed Vajra, is all these possibilities, the multiplicity of things. So this is the matrix of enlightened activities of being able to rise above all the mundane karma of this and be able to abide in the Buddha activities, the enlightened activities. So we'll talk about that very soon, this week or next week. We're going to talk about the different enlightened activities of the Buddhas. So Karma Prasiddhi is the Sanskrit name of this particular Buddha field. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a,
Jerry, yes. Jerry had his hand up and I heard somebody's voice.
Can I speak first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sitting here and I'm saying, why are we going through so many reincarnations and failing? For many of us, we have a feeling that we've been around many times, hundreds, thousands of times. We end up coming back to Earth. Why, if they're helping us along, why don't they allow us to come back with memories of going through this procedure, so that we know, hey, the next time I'm not going to come. I want to ascend. I don't want to go through the Earth again. It makes no sense to me. I need help.
Well, that's correct, and the answer to it is that we haven't perfected our recognition, our realization of what it is to be a human being and what it is to be a Buddha. And we haven't made the decision, we haven't made the commitment to purify ourselves to be able to be that light, figuratively, to be that light. They're there to help us, no doubt. But we have our, in many traditions, they talk about our free will. And our free will, our karma is driving us away from that light for myriad reasons and so on. And this is what we're here to find out about that. So we have to recognize what our emotions are. That's one of the things that are pulling us. Our ignorance is pulling us away. Our misunderstanding of what wisdom is pulling us away and making us to be reborn into the human realms again. So that's why we're not perfected.
See, the process of meeting all these Buddhas is one in which we are learning that we can ascend. And I just don't see how, I can't grasp it. I understand what you said, but if they're there to help us, then they should be able to.
They're not taking control of us because we are Buddha.
They're giving us input. They're giving us input. We all get input from our higher spirits, and
they are within us. We are Buddha. All this is within ourselves. And we have to, like I said, we have to make the decision not to listen to our lower selves. We have to listen and follow our higher selves, to put it in those terms. So it's our decision.
Well, I must have wasted 1,000 lifetimes because.
Well, no, because Jerry, you are
pretty
here,
intelligent.
Jerry,
I'll tell you that.
You are here now. You are here now, and now it's up to each and every one of us to seize this opportunity and to build on this opportunity.
Now, are there many other religions that, I know there must be thousands of religions on this planet, but are there any other that you know of that kind of is similar to this? Because I don't know of any religion that is doing what, this process is doing for us,
I'm not that great a scholar, but this is one reason why I personally am a I'm following the Buddhist path, because the Buddhist path is so articulate in this whole manner and what it is that we're trying to do. And that's why that is the beauty, I think, of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma teachings. That it makes it so accessible for us. It makes it so understandable for us. It doesn't relieve us of the responsibility to seize that opportunity and take responsibility for our success or for our failures.
Well, I tell you, know what I'm going to do right now. If I can't make it to an ascension level, I'm going to make sure I'm prepared to ask the Buddhas to give me enough intelligence to make it my last time.
Amen.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to ask. And I
I'm-
just wrote it down over here, and I'm telling you, that's what I'm going to memorize. Although I'm going to be no intelligence, because I have no body. And
All right, well, good. I'm glad
Thank
to hear that. All right, well, Michael had a question.
Yeah, so back to page 99, day 5. Towards the bottom, it talks about the green light of pristine cognition, and says, don't be afraid. This is the natural expressive power of your own awareness. And then I think the key part is rest in a state of great equanimity, transcending activity, free from the dichotomies of attachment and aversion, and then based on your feelings of nearness and distance. So nearness and distance, I know, is a dichotomy. That's a binary.
Right.
Is that being used just as an example, or is there something cryptic or important to know about?
No, it says rest in a state of great equanimity, transcending activity. And that activity is free from the dichotomies of attachment and aversion, which is based on your feelings of nearness and distance. So nearness and distance are related to attachment and aversion.
Okay, yeah. That's sort of what I thought, but I thought there might have been some deeper code to that.
No, it's just the turn of phrase, the way it's been translated. Okay, but a good observation and a good question. I thought the same thing too. I had to pause for a moment and think about that. Okay, anybody else have a comment or questions?
I just love that expression that keeps repeating each day. Even if you do turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably.
Right.
And just the wonderful hope in that it's like a wisdom shadow or an aura that we can't shake because it's us. Right. and it's just such a wonderful phrase.
Yes, thank you. Adrian, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to pretty much have the same comment as Debbie did, but my question is, does the other luminosity follow you as well?
Sure.
So you always have to make that choice. It's always either the strong, bright light or the dull light.
Yes.
Yeah. And I do have a comment, if I may, referring to what Jerry was saying a little bit earlier. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
I think Jerry, as long as you're perceiving yourself as different from these deities, I think that's an obstacle towards enlightenment. And in that moment, I think we're cultivating a dualistic mind. And we do have, I think, those memories of us in previous lives in the Bardos. It's just that we don't see them. At least that's how I perceive this. And our practice is to identify ourselves with these deities, to merge And basically, this is what the text is saying, that once you recognize this as being your own awareness, you're going to merge. So it's not you and the deity is the same. You are the Buddha. So it's just a
All right,
matter.
so let's identify what that is, because that's a perfect segue for this next little bit of our talk. To understand that we are the Buddha, we have to understand what that means and what these Buddhas symbolize. So now we're turned to our notes, to our notebook, to our paper or the mandala, whatever you want to use. And I'm going to give you a series of keywords that are like in levels that have different, they're all symbols that are reflecting meaning of what these Buddhas represent. So bear with me. And if you want to take down your notes, I choose to give this to you this way so that we can talk about it and not get lost in the minutiae of details too fast. So the 5 Buddha families. So if you're looking at that mandala frame that I gave you, in the center is the blue family. And at the bottom in the east, you see that it's labeled the east is the white family. And in the south, which is our left of that mandala, is the yellow family. And in the west, which is at the top portion, is the red family, and then the green family. So these lights, getting familiar with these lights, you'll begin to make associations with these lights. And these lights are like the last vestige of our intellectualization before we give way to the clear light. So just keep that in mind. We'll come back to that over and over again. So,
would you mind repeating that again? Repeating, please.
That these colored lights are part of the Sambhogagaya, are part of our intellectualization of what all the symbolism of what these different Buddhas represent. And that we transcend, ultimately we transcend that and become Dharmakaya, which is clear light, which is not necessarily any colored light. It is beyond those lights.
You mean transcending this mandala here?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
This is a tool. This is a tool. So, okay. So now let's give a name to these lights. Let's give a name to these sections in the mandala. And the mandala is a 3-dimensional device. It is like this bell here. It is, when you're looking at it like this, you're only seeing it in 2 dimensions, but you have to imagine it, or maybe you can draw it, or maybe you can create your own 3-dimensional mandala like this, which has height to it as well as width and depth. So that's another observation. That's another thing that we have to recognize. And because it has this 3rd dimension, it has levels to it. So in the center, the blue light, as it's shown here, is the Buddha family. That's called the Buddha family. For sake of discussion, it's called the Buddha family. Then in the east, the white family, in this case, is called the Vajra family. Vajra, V-A-J-R-A, Vajra, which means the wisdom mind. The Vajra is the wisdom mind, and the symbol for it is this here, which is it's in Hinduism, it's regarded as a thunderbolt. It's like this lightning. It's like this this powerful wisdom from beyond, but it's within ourselves. So this is the indestructible wisdom of the mind. So this is the Vajra family in the East, the white family in this situation, in this case. Then the yellow family is the Ratna family. And you see in there's a little icon that shows a little icon that is a jewel. And you should have seen the little picture of the Vajra. And in the blue family, in the center of the wheel, you'll see a wheel, which is emblematic of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, the eightfold path of the four truths. So going back to the Ratna family, the Ratna is a jewel. So it's the yellow family. And you see the jewel is in that segment right there, in that quadrant right there in the south. Then in the west, in the red family is a lotus flower, a Padma flower. Padma is the Sanskrit word for lotus. So the lotus is a flower that begins, the seed takes root and germinates from filth in the bottom of a very slow moving pond. And from that filth, the sprout comes and pierces the surface of the pond, and then this beautiful lotus flower, unstained, emerges and blossoms. And that is indicative of the purity that comes from defilement. And this is a simile for ourselves, that we have all come from defiled nature. We have all come from our defilements of confusion, of emotions, of non-virtue, negativity, and so on. And from that, we are blossoming as this beautiful lotus flower. When we sit in meditation position, we're sitting in the lotus position. That is called the lotus position. And all the Buddhas are all sitting on lotus pedestals, which is all indicative of this. And the Buddhas there are meditation Buddhas, but the Tathagatas were human beings who were able to transcend and were able to purify and were able to become Buddhas. So they are sitting on these lotus flowers. So this is in the West. This is the red family, the Padma family, referred to as the Padma family. So now the green family in the North is the image there is a Vishra Vajra. It's called a Vishra Vajra, is a double Vajra like this. If you can see this, it's a double Vajra like this. So the Vajra is the mind, is the absolute mind, is the indestructible absolute mind. And so this represents the awareness and the being able to apprehend and transcend the multiplicity of mind, the multiplicity of what we call phenomenal nature. All these choices, all these things that we have, all this dualistic nature and so on, and the union, all of that all coming together as Dharmakaya. So this Vishra Vajra represents the activity of the accomplishment of doing that. Okay, so now a step further. In the center is Varanchana, the Buddha Varanchana. So we talked about Buddha Varanchana in day one. Then in day two, we talked about Buddha Vajrasattva Ascobia. So he would be in the east, in the white family. And then in in the south would be Buddha Ratnasambhava, born of a lotus, born as a jewel, is Ratnasambhava. So that's day number 3, excuse me. Day number 2 would be Ascobia. Then day number 4 would be Amitabha in the west, and that is Buddha Amitabha, red, who is in that particular quadrant. And then green would be Amagoga City and his family in the northern quadrant, Amagoga City. Okay. Anybody have any questions while I'm talking? Just speak right up. I'll be more than glad to answer what I can for you.
Just a clarification, Lance.
Sure.
What was the name of that family again? I mean, I'm sorry, the North, the Green family.
What was it again?
The Green family in the North.
Yes. What were you asking? The symbol?
The name of the family.
Is the
The Karma family.
Karma family.
The
Thank
Karma
you.
family. Okay. All right. So now we'll relate this to phenomenal nature in the way that we experience the elements of phenomenal nature. So in the center, in the blue, would be space. So the Buddha family would be space. The Vajra family would be water. The Ratna family would be earth. Then the red family or the Padma family would be fire. And the green family or Amagog City family, the Karma family, would be wind. So these are the 5 elements or 5 elements: space, water, earth, fire, and wind. So as we dissolve, when our body dissolves, when we die, we go through this process of the blood dissolving into the body, the physical body, into the flesh. Then the flesh gets consumed by the heat of the decomposition of the flesh and producing heat. And then the movement of that, then that creates the heat, which is the fire. And then the fire, then the ashes, that is what's left of all the decomposed matter, then is blown away by the wind, and it's just scattered. It's just the movement of all that stuff just being blown about and so on. So there's many different ways of looking at it, but that's to make it relative to our conversation about when we die, the 5 elements when we die. And then, of course, when we're born, these 5 elements are all coming together to be able to manifest, to coalesce, so that we have a body and so on like that. Okay. So these are maybe the physical aspects. So now the more psychological aspects to these 5 families. The emotions. So now in the center, Varanchana works on, Varanchana is the perfection of being able to destroy, if you will, the emotion of delusion. or ignorance. So ignorance is dispelled in the Buddha family, in Vairocana's family. So delusion is another word for ignorance. And with that, there is a pride. There is a pride to our delusion. That is like the epitome of our delusion, that we become prideful of our delusion, that I am indestructible, that I am God, that I am the wisest one, I am the most powerful, is typified by our pride or arrogance. So then the next one in the East, in the Vajra family, the poison or the emotion is hatred. And hatred as anger or as aggression. So we can also say that these are the 5 poisons, what we're talking about. These 5 poisons are what make up the 84,000 emotions. Maybe you've heard that expression before, but it's said that Buddha Shakyamuni during his lifetime met so many people that he taught the antidotes to the 84,000 emotions. So the 84,000 emotions are made up of these 5 poisons that all come together. So in the East family, the Vajra family is the emotion of hatred, okay, or the poison of hatred. Then in the Ratna family, then the poison is greed. Greed. So you can make an association with the greediness of the earth, you know, the physical properties of the earth, the riches of the earth, and so on. And the what can we say about the water and the hatred? How it's all it's like all encompassing. You know, we've drowned in our hatred. And our delusion in space it's all pervasive. So now in the red family, in the Padma family, the emotion, the poison is desire or attachment or lust or passions. You can say passions can fall into a number of these, you know, can cross, you can use that word for a number of things. So most succinctly, it is desire and attachment is in the red family of Amitabha. So the root poison, the root emotion of desire. And then in the green family, in Amagog City family, is the poison of jealousy or envy. Envy and jealousy, you know, and this is very insidious because it may not be upfront. We may not be as obsessed. We can be with our hatred and with our desire. We can be very obsessed, and people can recognize that. It's easier for us to recognize. But the jealousy can be like figuratively in the back of our head, in the back of our minds, and just forcing us, making us do things that we don't realize that we're doing because of our jealousy, because of our envy. It's a little more subtle in that way. But it's as anybody, if you've ever experienced jealousy, and I'm sure everybody has at one time or another, know how insidious it can be. So that is the poison of that is overcome by Amagoga City. So now going a little bit further in this are the 5 wisdoms, that as we apply the 5 antidotes to these 5 poisons, we develop the 5 wisdoms. So the 5 antidotes to begin with is in the center, delusion. If we educate ourselves, we overcome ignorance, don't we? If we don't know something and we educate ourselves, then we have the ability to be able to know what it is that we're ignorant of. So education is a key to that. And as part of education is teaching. And Varanchana, actually, when he sits alone by himself without his consort, his hands, the mudra are the hand gestures. His gesture is in the gesture of teaching the Dharma. And if you've ever been a teacher of anything, you know that the most humbling experience as a teacher is when you get to the point where you're learning something from your students. So we overcome our ignorance by learning, and by teaching becomes a test for us to be able to apply what we think we know, but we always have to have an open mind that maybe I don't have it quite right, that maybe it can get purified. Maybe there's a better way to express it. So teaching is a key element to education. So then the antidote to hatred is loving kindness. Loving kindness. If we meet every hatred, every anger, every aggression with loving kindness, instead of meeting it with equal or greater hatred, we'll eliminate so many conflicts. Now, it takes a lot of work to do that. It takes a lot of compassion to do that. It takes a lot of effort to do that. But nevertheless, that is the answer. To overcome hatred is loving kindness. If you just meet hatred with hatred, all you got is a war. And we can see what's happening in the world right now. It hasn't been more obvious to those of us who can see than ever before. And some people are just relishing in the divisiveness and making this war. They're caught up in the hatred. They're loving the hatred. And then there are others who are trying to find ways to be able to show and practice loving kindness. Another word for loving kindness is wisdom. How do we find the commonality instead of finding the differences? So the antidote to hatred, aggression, is loving kindness. So then, greed. Greed is the yellow family, the Ratna family. So the Ratna implies this jewel, but some people would think of the jewel as a great diamond or a ruby or something like that. But the jewel of enlightenment, is what we're talking about. But the epitome of that jewel nature, that jewel-like nature. But this greediness of wanting things, of wanting the things of the earth, wanting this. So what is the antidote to that would be generosity, sharing that which you have. There are many people that have very, very little and need very, very much. And there are people that have so much, could never, ever in their lifetime or many, many lifetimes be able to use the wealth that they have, be it in material wealth, be it money in the bank, or be it wisdom or power, whatever. They could not expend all that wealth that they have they need to share it. When you share it, when you're generous with it, then that is how you overcome greediness, by sharing, by generosity. Then the poison of desire is overcome by meditation, by withdrawing from being able to cool down the heat of the fire, to cool down the heat of the moment, to be able to withdraw, to be able to step back, to be able to analyze, to be able to look at and contemplate.
Detachment?
Well, detachment, yes, yeah, that would, yeah, you could use that word, but it's more than that, because detachment is just the other side of attachment. But how do you detach? You know, you detach by meditation, by transcending, by rising above. So that's how you do it. So that is, so as generosity, you know, giving away is more obvious about how you overcome greediness. Here, by overcoming desire is by transcending, is by meditation, by contemplating, by withdrawing and being able to gain a new insight, a new balance of looking at what the situation is. And then the antidote to jealousy is accomplishment, is going ahead and engaging in unimpeded activity. Go ahead and do what it is that you think you can't do. Now, through that doing, you may get to a point where you reach success in accomplishing that which you were jealous about. But very, very often what will happen is you will get to a midpoint somewhere along the line and realize it's something you never even wanted really in the first place. It just looked good to you. And by going after it and trying to do it, trying to accomplish it, you say, you know what? This isn't what I want. This is much more intensive than I thought it was going to be. It's really not worth the effort, you know, because what I was jealous of just has so much high maintenance or something. It's like somebody who wants, you know, this big house, but then has to find out that, my goodness, you know, you got to pay the insurance for it. You got to mow the lawn. You got to put a new roof on every few years. You got to paint the house. You got to do all these things. I didn't realize I got to do all these things. Now I don't want that big thing that I thought I wanted. So maybe it's a job, maybe it's a relationship, you know, many different ways of being able to express that that jealousy. So what we do is we have unimpededness in being able to move towards that, to be able to satisfy our jealousy, to be able to overcome our jealousy. So those 5 antidotes then will neutralize those 5 poisons. And again, those 5 poisons and those 5 antidotes then are, and all their myriad combinations, are the 84,000 emotions and the solutions to those 84,000 emotions. So now what comes out of that are the 5 wisdoms. So the 5 wisdoms in the Buddha family, it's the all-pervading wisdom. Paranchana represents the all-pervading wisdom. That the truth of things is like the sunlight that cannot be blocked by mere walls and windows and so on. You know, if when the sun comes up and we can be in the interior of our house, but yet we know that the sun is up because we can see things that we normally couldn't see a few hours before the sun came up. So that all pervasiveness is like that wisdom that comes in and gets into all the shadows, gets into all the crevices, and so on. Now, I know there's extreme, conditions that you can say, well, I can build a light-proof room and so on, but that, that's true, but it's missing the point. This all pervasiveness of truth pervades all things. So all pervading wisdom is what Varanchana represents. And remember, he's in the teaching mudra. Now, Ascobia, he's in the east, and he is sitting in the position where his left hand is in the meditative position. So his left hand is 4 inches below his navel, and the palm is up like this in the meditative position. His right hand is at his right knee with the palm on his right knee and his fingertips touching the earth. And this is representative of his steadfastness. And this goes to the quality of being able to overcome the hatred through loving kindness. This is where I will take my stand. This is where I will show wisdom. This is where my loving kindness is. This is where I will lead my life.
So,
What
so the
wisdom is
wisdom,
that?
I'm sorry, one at a time. Who
Go
was
ahead,
it?
Michael.
Michael?
so the wisdom of Oxyscobia
Yes,
is what?
is loving kindness. Oh, I'm sorry. The wisdom is, I didn't say it, did I? Is the mirror-like wisdom. Mirror-like wisdom. That what we are seeing are all appearances. Everything we see are just appearances. And we take them for being real. We take them for being permanent. But actually, they are all just temporary images that we have given, these names and so on, and thinking that they are permanent. But they are just compounded things that all together we give these names to, and we agree on these names. We agree that this is the color red. We agree this is a table. We agree that this is a window. We agree that that's the sky, and so on. But it's all just temporary stuff. They're like images in a mirror, mirror-like wisdom, that we see everything as being temporary, as being just reflections of our own mind, of our own ideas, our own concepts. So can I finish this with these 5 wisdoms, or do people have to go?
I'm good.
Okay, all right, I'll finish these wisdoms, and then we'll continue on, because there's more after this, but we'll finish this tonight. So now so Ascobia is the mirror-like wisdom. Then Ratnasambhava is the wisdom of equanimity. The wisdom of equanimity, and the generosity that overcomes the greediness, this balance, this sameness, that we're all the same, that we have this earth, we have this stuff that it's not unlimited. The earth has its boundaries to it, but we find that there's enough for everybody. There's enough for everything that we need to do, and that there's no need for us to be greedy. And if we treat the earth with generosity for the sake of our brothers and sisters, then there will be balance. There will be the wisdom of equanimity, of balance.
So you call that equalizing wisdom, or the wisdom of equanimity?
Well, the wisdom of equanimity.
Okay.
The wisdom of equanimity. So then Amitabha in the West, in the red family, desire, and then this meditation, this being able to withdraw, this contemplation, then leads to the wisdom of discriminating awareness. The wisdom of discriminating awareness, that we are able to withdraw and be able to quietly, but very skillfully, evaluate what is going on around us, what is happening within ourselves, and discriminate as to what is important, what can be put on the side. Maybe we have to look at that later, but right now, what are our priorities? Discriminating awareness. Everything's important. Everything means something, but it's a question of how we look at that, how we set our priorities. So through that, we overcome our desire through that standing back, that contemplation, that meditation, that evaluation, the wisdom of discriminating awareness. So that's Amitabha. And then in the green, Amagog City, the emotion is jealousy. And the cure for that was unimpededness is protection, is the wisdom of protection, the wisdom of being able to accomplish all things, that we can protect ourselves by doing what we need to do through our unimpededness, that we develop all accomplishing wisdom. We can accomplish anything that we need to, and particularly the accomplishment of liberation, which is the culmination of all this all coming together. So these 5 Buddhas are like a how would I say, a dissemination of the clear light. We can't see the clear light because it's clear. You got to be a Buddha to be able to recognize it. But in that clear light are all these other lights. So now these lights manifest in these different colors with these different Buddhas in order that we can intellectualize their meaning and so on. So as we are approaching this, if we're approaching this from the bottom up, then we're building up to this and we're getting to the perfection of these 5 Buddhas, these 5 Buddha families. And then when we become the perfection of that, then we can see, we can recognize the clear light. That's from the bottom up. From the top down, we're forced, we have to go into the clear light, but do we recognize it? If we don't recognize the clear light, then we recognize the blue light, or we have the ability to recognize it, but we cower away. And then here comes the white light, but we cower away. And then here comes the yellow light, and we cower away. So we have these opportunities, whether or not we recognize them. This is from the top down. So we've been here many times, both ways. We've died many times, and we've been born many times. So now we have a technique to be able to identify all these characteristics, all these elements, and be able to recognize, well, what is it to be a Buddha then? What is it to be a human being? Is being a human being a Buddha? We have Buddha nature within ourselves, but is my body Buddha? Am I Buddha? What am I? What does that mean? What does I, me, mine mean? So we're building the vocabulary, we're building the tools to be able to look at all this, with a philosophy, with an understanding, with a technique that we can think for ourselves and we can communicate with each other and so on. So these 5 wisdoms are the 5 wisdoms of the Buddha. Can I have 5 more minutes? So what are the benefits of this? What are the benefits? So the benefit of the blue light, the benefit of the all-pervading wisdom is our growth potential. the space, our growth potential. If I can use the analogy of like being a gardener, that we're giving our garden, the crops of our garden, room to be able to grow. This is our growth potential, the space, the all-pervading wisdom. Then the Ascobia, the mirror-like wisdom, then we have cohesion, mirror-like wisdom. We see all these things. This is the water element. The water element, if you look in the water, you see that there's all these things that are in water. It looks like it's perfectly clear. But meanwhile, it's holding all these things within every drop of water. So there's this cohesion factor of this of these appearances. They seem to be very simple to us when we look at them. Oh, this is real. This is my hand. Oh, this is my bell. Oh, I have all these names. But there's all these things that went and made all these things. They're all compounded nature. So every one of these things is like a cohesion of many compounded things that is characterized by water. Then the benefit of the wisdom of equanimity in the yellow family is stability. Of the wisdom of equanimity, of the generosity, of being able to see the earth, the stability of the earth, the stability of understanding all this stuff, what it means. It gives us an ability to be able to build upon something, only to launch from it. So then the next one is the wisdom of discriminating awareness. The wisdom of discriminating awareness. We discriminate what it is that we're going to examine. And this is the ripening. This is the fire. This is the ripening. If we're looking at something and it's all very green to us, it's all very, it's not making sense. But if we keep looking at it, we keep examining, we keep bringing wisdom to it, we keep bringing skillful means to it, we keep bringing compassion to it, it begins to warm up, it begins to ripen, and then all of a sudden, now we can see it, now we can recognize it. The flower blooms, the fruit comes, we can enjoy the fruit. So there's the ripening, is the benefit of discriminating awareness. And then jealousy, or rather the all-accomplishing wisdom, is that the benefit to that is that we have movement, that we have the ability to be able to change, that we can move around in all this phenomenal nature, and it becomes our friend and not our enemy. We bring it all together. We join with that in bliss, in the emptiness of all this. We make this bliss. We make this our platform in which to be able to enrich ourselves through our movement, through our being able to do the dance, of life. That's the benefit of Amagog City and Tara. So these are identifiers of these 5 Buddha families. You will get to know these. If you continue to study this, you will get to know these like the back of your hand, because this is who you are spiritually. Now, maybe 2 hours ago, you might have been ignorant about any number of these things, but now you've been exposed to something new for you. Now it's up to you to test it. Now it's up to you to examine it. Now it's up for you to study this, to understand it. And maybe you'll think, oh, well, you have doubts, and that's okay. But let's talk about the doubts. Just don't suppress it. Bring your questions. Bring your observations. Let's talk about them. This is something new for many of us. So open yourself up to this. This is how we recognize our Buddha nature. So
what's the benefit for Varanchana again?
Varanchana was the benefit of the growth potential. The growth potential. So next week, we're going to talk about the natural purity of each of these. So if you remember when we were going through each of these 5 days and each of those deities was being expressed as the natural purity of hatred, the natural purity of delusion, the natural purity of desire, the natural purity of hatred. So we're going to explore that a little bit more. So we're going to start with that next week, continue this conversation. So that's why you have those mandalas, those mandala frames to make your notes. So now you can create this image and you begin to bring a lot of different things together in your mind to make associations with all of this. It stops being all these abstract ideas and now it becomes much more understandable. Okay, any quick questions or comments?
Does this coordinate with, like in traditional Chinese medicine, with the organs in the body?
I'm sure it does, but I'm not a student of that, so I can't say exactly where and how, but I'm sure it does.
Okay, because the colors and the emotions and all
Sure.
seem to coordinate with what I've learned. So I was just wondering.
Sure, absolutely. It's all connected. Yes. And that's the beauty of this. And we begin to see all those connection points. Yes. So we're looking at it here probably as the least common denominators of these things. And then the way in which it all the myriad applications in which all this stuff manifests. Okay. All right. Can we, anybody else have something? All right. Debbie, can you put up the Sukhavati prayer, please? And we'll recite this prayer for our dedication. It's important to do our dedication so that we are sealing the wisdom and skillful means, the merit that we have gained, and dedicating it to the enlightenment of other beings. Here in this first prayer, Amitabha's prayer, the brief prayer to be reborn in the blissful pure land of Dewachen, which is the Tibetan name for Sukhavati, which is the pure land of Amitabha, who is the Red family, the head of the Red family, or the Padma family. So please carry on, Debbie.
Emaho. In the center is the marvelous Buddha Amitabha of boundless light. On the right side is Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion. On the left is Vajrapani, the Lord of powerful means. All are surrounded by limitless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Immeasurable peace and happiness is the blissful pure land of Dewachen. When I and all beings pass from samsara, may we be born in Dewachen without taking samsaric rebirth. May I have the blessing of meeting Amitabha face to face by the power and blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. May I attain this aspiration without hindrance. Tayata pensa dvya awa bodhanaye soha. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. By this virtue, may I achieve all knowingness, by defeating all enemies' confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of suffering. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings.
Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Om,
Thank you.
Hum. Om, Hum. Om, Hum. May my body, speech, mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, Lance. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Lance. Good night, everyone.
Good night.